The Federal Reserve has officially exhausted all of its ammunition to preserve the markets by literally zeroing out its rates, its interest rates, and buying hundreds of billions of dollars worth of bonds. Now, what is the effect of all of this? Nothing. Stocks fell again this morning. So now the Dow Jones Industrial Average cratered about 2,442 points, falling more than 10% shortly before 10 a.m. on Monday. The S&P fell about 9.8%, which triggered a 15-minute pause in trading that occurs whenever the index falls at least 7% after the opening bell. The NASDAQ composite also sunk about 9.6%. So understand that all of these are very bad, right? Low numbers bad for the stock market. And what it is that we've been seeing stocks fall so fast in the mornings. As soon as the opening trading bell is open, that they have something built into it called a circuit breaker, right? And you know what a circuit breaker does is that when there's too much voltage, shuts off to prevent the whole thing from blowing up. Well, that's what's happening with the stock market. That circuit breaker keeps getting triggered because the markets are in a panic. Now, Wall Street, by the way, was expected to open with steep losses after the Federal Reserve slashed interest rates to 0%. So, I mean, look, I saw that this was going to happen. Like there literally wasn't any more that you could cut off the interest rates, right? So now, no interest, right? 0%. Not only that, but $700 billion in bonds were bought following the emergency Sunday meeting of the Federal Open Market Committee, the central bank's monetary policy arm. So understand, right? So now interest rates are at nothing, and we've got this massive bond buy, right? Still gigantic losses. Now, whether this prevented even bigger losses, I'm not entirely sure. But what I am sure of is that the Federal Reserve can basically do no more when it comes to interest rate cuts. They can't. You can't cut beyond zero, right? So that's it. You've got no more ammunition on that unless they decide to print money and inject it into the stock market, which they've already been doing. About $1.5 trillion got injected into stocks last week with very little impact. So this is bad. This is bad. So now Monday's sell-off, according to The Hill, and the major Fed intervention that spurred it are the latest flash of deep anxiety within financial markets as we look towards going into a recession. So look, I've talked about recession happening for a while. This is not a situation where this massive panic is the cause of it. In reality, we had corporations for a long time, thanks to low interest rates, that were over leveraged. They had too much debt. And we also had the market being overinflated because of stock buybacks. And really, all it needed was an emergency to push everything over the edge. And, oh, look, we just went over the edge. Great. Now, the problem, of course, is that there's a lot of people that cannot work because their employers are shutting down due to health concerns, right? So now people are being told to, do some social distancing, quarantine yourself, right? If you start to feel sick. And so you have situations where people can't go to work. Now, there are, of course, people still working. Obviously, there's still places that are open. But a lot of sit-down restaurants, they're closed. You have a lot of bars that have closed. You have public events that have been canceled. Major retail chains have closed or restricted hours. Professional sports leagues like, for example, baseball, right? They have suspended their seasons, and theaters, music venues, and film festivals are also closed, canceled, postponed events because of what's going on. I said baseball, but look, I'm not a sports guy. So I probably got that wrong. Nonetheless, you have sports that have shut down and a lot of places that have shut down. And then, of course, you have travel, which has been restricted. That puts a huge strain on the economy, hotels, obviously airlines. In fact, I think the major airlines are calling for a $50 billion bailout from the government to survive this. And so, what happens when you have a government, or not a government, but an economy that is based on consumer spending? And then nobody can actually spend in the economy. Everybody's staying home. Well, it's not good. It's not good at all. Now, Federal Reserve Chairman Jerome Powell did say on Monday, quote, families, businesses, schools, organizations, and governments at all levels are taking steps to protect people's health. These measures, which are essential for containing the outbreak, will nonetheless understandably take a toll on economic activity in the near term. Along with its cutting its baseline interest rate range to 0%, the Federal announced also that it would purchase about $500 billion in Treasury bonds and $200 billion in mortgage-backed securities to stabilize the financial markets. Again, adding into the $1.5 trillion injection into the markets. But again, we don't know what kind of effect it's going to be, what it's going to have on the market. So while the Federal Reserve has put a lot of money into the stock markets, and the government has put money into shale companies, we have not seen a regular bailout for work, or I'm sorry, we haven't seen a bailout for regular working people. I mean, the House bill that is currently being debated, working its way through Congress, only requires 20% of workers getting sick leave. Only covers 20%. Big employers like McDonald's and Amazon are not required to provide any paid sick leave, while companies fewer than 50 employees can seek hardship exemptions from the Trump administration. I'm actually okay with some of the hardship exemptions, but why is Amazon and McDonald's not required to pay for sick leave? Why? I mean, it's ridiculous, right? So now that legislation does provide some compensation for workers who need to take longer leaves under the FMLA, Family Leave Act, but is excluded for big corporations. Why? What's the point? What's the point of the bill? And I know these Republicans are like, well, we don't want you to have any leave. Oh, well, thanks. Appreciate that. Just, allow people to get sick and then get other people sick. And then now nobody can go to work. I mean, it's ridiculous, right? And look, there's more problems beyond just paid sick leave, by the way. People have mortgages and rents that they can't get paid for, being laid off. People need to buy food and supplies. And I don't mean hand sanitizer and toilet paper. I mean actual food, right? So the administration is doing a terrible job. Like, you could actually at least stabilize some of the markets by not just helping out Wall Street, but helping regular people continue to buy things and participate in the market, even in the limited capacity that we can. And, things like online purchases obviously are very helpful, and maintaining proper social distancing and hand washing and things like that, and still being able to participate in some commerce, but also giving relief to those who can't go to work by waiving things like student loans, by waiving things like mortgage payments and utilities until this situation gets under control. And by God, making sure that everybody who can get tested for free and also treated for free. No copays, deductibles, or anything like that. That's the way to weather the crisis. And unfortunately, the administration is not going in that direction. And that is another reason we're going to see the markets continue to tank. Whether this ends up into a full-blown depression, I have no idea. I hope it doesn't. But from the way that it's looking, it is not good. Hey guys, hopefully you enjoyed that free video. Now I'm going to have to ask you a favor. Between the demonetization and the YouTube algorithm messing around with view counts, etc. We're having a hard time adjusting to the new YouTube reality, which is where you guys come in. See, we have a Patreon, patreon.com/TYTNation, set up to help us rely on you guys, the viewers, instead of big corporate ads. Look, you know the show. You know how I'm not in favor of big corporations anyway. So help us transition away from relying on the ad model to pay the bills and sign up to be a patron, patreon.com/TYTNation. That goes a long way to help us keep the lights on. And you guys will know that you're supporting independent progressive media.